Alexander C. Bennett has 2 PhDs in Human Studies and Sciences from the University of Canterbury and Kyoto University. He holds the ranks of 7th Dan Kyoshi in Kendo, 5th Dan in Iaido and Naginata, 5th Dan in Jukendo and Tankendo. He is a professor at Kansai University of both Kendo and Japanese culture and history, and author of several books in English and Japanese. This lecture was filmed at the famous Nishinkan Samurai School during a historical tour revolving around the samurai culture of the Fukushima Prefecture, and co-organized by Alexander Bennett in January 2020.
The Edo period, starting from after the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, and with the formation of the Bakufu, or the military government in Edo, which is Tokyo, lasted for around about 250 years. And what's notable about this period, 250 years, there's not many countries in the world that can say they have enjoyed a stretch of 250 years of peace. But that's essentially what Edo period was. There was a lot of tension, and the peace was precarious at times and in places, but there were no full-scale wars domestically or with foreign powers. And so during this time of peace, the samurai were considered to be society's elite. They were professional warriors. But why do you need professional warriors in a time of peace? What was a samurai supposed to do? There were no pachinko shops at the time, and there were no wars where they could go out and demonstrate to the world their prowess, their military skill, their valor. And so the samurai in the Edo period had to redefine their existence and redefine the way in which they interacted with each other and with other members of society. They were a minority. Depends on the textbook that you read. Some estimates say that the samurai, or what were people of samurai status, made up 3% of Japan's entire population, and other estimates go up to around about 7%. It's hard to say, but in any case, they were a minority compared to the farmers and the artisans and the merchants, and which altogether were known as the shomin, or the commoners. The commoners themselves, there was no rank as such. It's not that the farmers were above the artisans or the merchants. The commoners were all one group together, but above them were the samurai. And in a time of peace, the samurai had to, as I said, reassert themselves, re-establish what their role in a peaceful society was. In other words, they had to kind of justify their existence because they didn't make anything, they didn't grow anything, they just received salaries and walked around with 2 swords in their belt. And so, as the warrior mindset was, well, as it evolved over the centuries in the Edo period, it's rather than focusing their violent tendencies on other people in battle, for example, because there were no battles, it sort of became, how can I say this? They looked to discipline themselves, because within society, although there were many bad eggs, of course, the samurai were expected to be respected members of society, people that the commoners could look up to as role models or paragons of morality. And to this end, the martial arts played a very important role in the samurai education. The opportunity for them to actually use their martial skills in battle had all but disappeared, but they were still expected to be militarily ready, if need be, because their job in peace was essentially peacekeeper. And the martial arts, they started to change. Kenjutsu, what we do as kendo now, evolved into not so much a way of learning how to kill your opponent in battle, but more religious in nature, if anything, a form of physical culture in which the samurai was able to hone his own sensibilities and sense of morality and grow as a human being. At least that was the ideal. During the Edo period, given that the samurai didn't have a lot of fighting to do, it was, and because of all the peace that was enjoyed, it was a time in which many aspects of Japanese culture became very refined, and the samurai themselves became highly educated members of society, especially with the creation of these domains called han around the country. There are something like 265 han, or domains. And as we head into the mid to late 1700s, early 1800s, many of the domains created their own schools in which the children of samurai families were educated in the martial arts, educated in the classics, educated in governance, and all of the skills that were required of somebody who would be running the administration of the domain. And where we are right now, the Nishinkan became one of the most famous samurai schools throughout Japan because of the high level of education that was conducted here. And we're going to get a chance to have a look around it very soon, but just outside there's a big, what looks like a pond. It's actually a swimming pool where they practiced the ancient Japanese martial art of synchronized swimming. It's considered to be the first swimming pool in Japan, actually, but we'll have a chance to look at that later on. But the Nishinkan was established in 1803. The name, each school in the various domains had their own names, but collectively they're called hanko. Okay, not hanko that you use to stamp things, but hanko means domain school, literally. With regards to Nishinkan, generally children in a samurai family would enter, there was a little bit of variation, but the age of 10. And what you have in this wonderful facility, which has been completely reconstructed, the original Nishinkan was further in town where the dojo is, in front of the castle, but it got burned down during the Boshin War, which was the lead up to the Meiji Restoration around that time. And based on the blueprints from the Nishinkan, this is a perfect replica of the original school. In it you'll find all sorts of wonderful things like the dojo, where we're going to practice later on this afternoon. There's a astronomical observatory. There's, like I said before, the Suba Ike, that's the name of the pool, and so on and so forth. What the children, or the samurai children, studied here, apart from the martial arts, was mainly Confucian classics. And a part of the Nishinkan that we're going to go and see a little bit later on, you'll see kind of shrines dedicated to the Confucian masters, the people that they revered or studied. Now, one of the really famous legacies, I guess you could say, of Nishinkan was a group of young teenage boys. They were all divided up into corps. And one of the corps was named Byakkotai, which literally means the white tiger corps. And one of the really important parts about us visiting Fukushima is to know about the history of the Byakkotai, because they are said to embody the strict virtues that were taught to the samurai of this domain, to the extent that when I tell you the story, some of you may have heard it already, but when I tell you the story, it might seem incredibly cruel to our modern sensibilities, but it's something that happened 150 years ago And it's a very important part of the identity